Brothers and sisters, today we're going to tackle one of the most challenging and heart-wrenching experiences in our spiritual journey, when it feels like God has turned his back on us. This is a subject that most of us have experienced at some point in our walk with the Lord, yet it's one that we often avoid talking about. We've all been through seasons of life where it feels as though our prayers are bouncing off the ceiling, where God's presence seems distant and his voice is silent. These are the moments that test the very foundation of our faith. But I'm here to tell you today that even in these moments God is working. His silence is not absence, and his distance is not abandonment. Before we dive into this difficult but crucial message, I encourage you to like and share this sermon. Help us reach people around the world who are struggling in their faith, feeling abandoned, and wondering if God still cares. Every like, every share spreads this message further, helping people prepare for the second coming of Jesus Christ. Now let's delve into this deeply emotional part of the Christian faith. Why does it feel like God turns his back? The idea of God turning his back on us can seem contradictory to everything we know about him. God is loving, faithful, and always present. So why does it feel like he's gone silent when we need him most? The Bible is full of examples of faithful men and women who experience this very feeling. Think about King David, a man after God's own heart, crying out in Psalm 13, 1-2, "How long, Lord? Will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts and day after day have sorrow in my heart?" Or consider Job, who suffered unspeakable loss and pain, pleading with God to answer him, but receiving only silence for what felt like an eternity. Even Jesus Christ himself, while hanging on the cross, cried out in Matthew 27:46, my God, why have you forsaken me?" If these great pillars of faith felt abandoned, we shouldn't be surprised when we face seasons of silence. But why does God allow these times of distance? The purpose of silence: testing our faith. One of the main reasons God may seem to turn his back on us is to test our faith. Just as gold is refined in fire, so our faith is purified through trials and times of testing. 1 Peter 1:6-7 reminds us, "In all this you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer grief in all kinds of trials. These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed." God doesn't test our faith to cause us pain. He allows these difficult seasons so that we can grow stronger, more resilient, and more dependent on him. Just as a parent allows a child to struggle to teach them strength and perseverance, so God allows us to face spiritual silence so that we might learn to trust him, even when we cannot feel him. Faith is believing in what we cannot see, and this is especially true when it feels like God has turned his back. Will we continue to trust him when he is silent? Will we press on in our devotion, even when we feel alone? Learning to trust God's timing. Another reason God's presence may feel distant is because his timing is different from ours. We live in a world of instant gratification, where we expect answers and solutions immediately. But God operates on an eternal timeline, and his delays are not denials. Isaiah 55:8-9 tells us, "For my thoughts are not your thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, declares the Lord. As the heavens are higher than the earth, so are my ways higher than your ways, and my thoughts than your thoughts." When God seems silent, it's often because he is working on something far greater than we can understand. His perspective is eternal, and he knows what we need in the long run, not just in the moment. Romans 8:28 reminds us that, "In all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose." But that doesn't mean the road is easy. There are times when we, like Job, cry out for answers and receive none. These moments teach us to trust in God's timing even when we don't understand it. God's silence does not mean abandonment. When it feels like God has turned his back, we must remind ourselves of this truth. God has promised never to leave us nor forsake us. Deuteronomy 31:6 reassures us, "Be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid or terrified because of them, for the Lord your God goes with you. He will never leave you nor forsake you. Even in his silence, God is present. Even when we feel abandoned, he is near. Psalm 34:18 promises, "The Lord is close to the brokenhearted and saves those who are crushed in spirit." In the moments when we feel abandoned, God is closer than we realize. He is working in the background, aligning circumstances and preparing us for what's next. But just like a master artist who steps back from the canvas to see the full picture, God sometimes steps back to allow us the space to grow in faith. The role of perseverance in faith. Perhaps the most difficult part of experiencing God's silence is learning to persevere through it. It's tempting to give up, to stop praying, to walk away from our faith. But perseverance is essential to spiritual maturity. James 1:2-4 says, "Consider it pure joy, my brothers and sisters, whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Let perseverance finish its work so that you may be mature and complete, not lacking anything." Perseverance through silence produces spiritual maturity. It teaches us to rely not on our feelings but on the promises of God. Feelings are temporary and changeable, but God's word is eternal. Hebrews 13:8 reminds us that Jesus Christ is the same yesterday and today and forever. When God feels distant, we cling to the unchanging truth of his word. God's silence and the second coming of Christ. As we look forward to the second coming of Jesus Christ, we must understand that the times of God's silence and distance are a preparation. Just as the bridegroom in Matthew 25:1-13 delayed his return, causing the foolish virgins to run out of oil, so we must remain vigilant and prepared, even when it feels like God is silent. The parable of the 10 virgins is a stark reminder that Jesus will return at an unexpected hour, and only those who are ready will enter the wedding banquet. Are we prepared for his return? Are we keeping our spiritual lamps filled with oil even during the seasons of silence? We may be living in a time where God's voice seems faint, but this is not the time to grow weary or complacent. Matthew 24:42 warns us, "Therefore keep watch, because you do not know on what day your Lord will come." The silence of God is a test of our readiness. Are we prepared to meet him when he returns? Will we be found faithful, even in the silence? My friends, this message is not just for us. It's for the entire world. We live in a time where people are losing faith, feeling abandoned and giving up on God because they don't understand his silence. But we know the truth. We know that God's silence is not abandonment. It's an invitation to grow deeper in faith and to prepare for the return of Christ. I urge you today to like and share this message. Let's spread the truth to a world that desperately needs it. Every like helps this message reach more people, and every share is an opportunity for someone to hear the gospel and prepare for the second coming of Jesus Christ.